Hi everybody, it's Booray and I am making a video to show you what I do to a typical wedding image shot on the beach in RAW. I use Bridge for processing my RAW images, and I thought I'd just walk you through step by step what I do to a typical RAW image. Now, here we have a bride on the beach. As you can see, the crop is terrible, the framing is terrible, but the reason for that is because I'm kneeling when I take this shot, and when you're kneeling on the beach, you can't touch the ground because you can't ever touch the sand with your hands, or else you get sand all over you. So you're wearing all your gear because you can't set your gear down in the sand either. And you're kneeling and you're having to balance and it can be shaky. So I will, by default, shoot wide very frequently because I know I can always crop it later. So the first thing I'm going to do when I get home with an image like this is I'm going to jump right to the straighten tool. I'm going to drag it right across the horizon because that's my straight line and let it go. And now I've got a good, clean, correctly done crop. I'm going to take this in a little bit closer to right about there. That's probably where I want to put it. I'm using a 2-3 ratio, I'm sorry, 3-4 ratio. 2-3 is your default. I've been cropping a lot to 3-4 recently. I think it works better, especially with dresses that flare at the bottom. So there's my crop. And to check my crop, I always just pop right over here and click on graduated filter real quick. All right, there's my crop. So now, next step is to look at all my basic settings over here to the right. Temperature. My temperature is pretty good. If you look at her dress, it looks to be white, and that's good, but I'm actually going to warm it up just a little bit because I like my images to be a little warm on the beach because, well, you're on the beach. It's sunset, and it's warm. That's what it looks like. The exposure is pretty good. Again, look at the dress. I think we could probably pop that up just a touch. Right about there may be good. Contrast, we'll take that up just a touch. The highlights, you can see these sliders. I moved them already, so let me put them back where they're supposed to be. There we go. Highlights, if you look at the background here, it's very blown out, very bright. So I'm going to take down the highlights to recover some of the sky. I'm going to bring up the shadows a little bit to give me a little fill light because we're using one light over here to the left. You don't have a bounce over here, a reflector. You don't have a fill light. You get a lot of hard shadows over here. So I'll use the shadows quite frequently. As you can, I can bring that right up. So I'll bring that back down to right about there. And then the whites, if you look at your histogram, my whites are good. The blacks, if you look at my histogram, my blacks, we don't have a lot of stuff over here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to take my blacks and I'm going to boost them just a little bit, and that's going to give me more contrast. So if you look here, here's the normal, and then by boosting it, now I'm getting a little more contrast in her. That's my style. I tend to like a little bit of contrast in my pictures. So here's where we are now. Now, I think her face could be a little brighter. If you look, this area is brighter than her face. So I'm going to go right up here to my adjustment brush, and I am going to brush in. I'm going to take that down just a little bit. I'm going to brush in her face a little bit, and also this area is pretty dark. And as you can see, I had it set to darker. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to slide this up to the brighter side. There you go. And now you can see I can take that as bright as I want. That's too much. This is normal. I'm just going to brighten it up just a little bit. And now her face is more on par with her arm in the same brightness. So that's good. And you'll notice that this maneuver right here is the only time I use a digital pen during the entire process. Everything else I can do with the mouse. Although, to be honest, sometimes I just use the mouse to do that too. So then, finally, the next thing I do, and one of the last things I do, is I use my gradient filter. When you're shooting on the beach, you end up with a lot of dead space down here, and a lot of times it's bright, especially if the flash hits this sand. So I will go and I will grab my gradient filter, I'll set my exposure down maybe a quarter of a stop or a half a stop, and then I'll drag up from the bottom like this. Here we go. And that makes the sand darker. And what that does, here's before, and here's after. And what that does is by making this darker, it brings your eye up to her. This is what I want you to look at right here, not this. Now, there's one new tool that's may soon become my favorite tool of all time, and that's the radial filter. And with the radial filter, you can basically vignette the whole image, but you get to pick where the center of the vignette is. So you can go right here, draw a little oval, and drop it right around her like that. And now here's my adjustment over here. And now there's my normal, but if I want to, see, I can vignette it right around her. I'm using it occasionally, like right there. I might want to do it just a little bit. But also, you can just go to the vignette feature and vignette the corners if you want to. So let's just do that just a little. There you go. So let's go back to graduate filter and look at that. Yeah, that's about where I would go from RAW to JPEG. So we go to crop tool. We go over here. We check our detail, which is sharpening. I want my sharpening up around 49 or 50. And then we go to lens correction. That's the actual picture as it came out of the camera. We enable the lens correction. And I think we're good. That's the picture. That's the way that I would shoot. I would convert it to JPEG and deliver it to the client on their disk. And then if it was ordered as a print or an album or something of that nature, then I would go in and I would smooth or scan and maybe make some more adjustments. But that's a typical amount of work that I put on an image. And that's a lot of work, really, for an image. And it's because it's specifically her at sunset, off-camera light. So you want to get that as close to as good as possible in RAW before you export it out. So there you go. That's what I do to an image in RAW. I hope you enjoyed it.